I was disappointed in my performance yesterday, Bloom, so I will come back with the Thunder today.
Ooh, the Thunder
That's
Down
stupid.
Under.
Carlar. So bothered by that. I was able to edit it out of the audio version. I was like, "Devil, get out!"
Mm-hmm. But
Yeah,
so it doesn't matter. In the
I
end,
know. My sloppy handwriting. All right, let's do this thing in 3, 2, 1. It just doesn't matter if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers because, well, you've got a tie and you're on the bubble if you're the
Yeah.
Steelers and you're going up against the Titans and Titans are in, Steelers aren't. So Titans Steelers, first game we're going to preview in part 2 of the week 15 preview here on the Audible, Bloom, and the Titans side first, which means you're not starting Julio Jones. Like, I guess,
Right.
people get overly excited. Like, no, he's a flex play. He's the only receiver they've got. He's the number one. Yeah, sure, fine. And he's a flex play. And he's a flex play that has an injury re-injury risk. Re-injury risk. I don't know. It's a lot of risk. You're playing a board game and rolling the dice when you start Julio Jones.
Yeah, this is pretty easy. Well, first of all, Cease, look, in the history lesson today, can we just go back to happier days for a second? Remember when the Steelers owned the Oilers? They owned them to the point of driving Oilers fans crazy. And I always remember that playoff upset in 1989 in the wild card game. And the 3-1, actually. I think Tommy Maddox was the quarterback in the only Steelers-Titans-Oilers playoff game that the Steelers lost. So now we come back to the present and a lot of Dante Foreman. And part of the reason you don't necessarily love Julio Jones as what the heck flex this week is because why would you stop running on the Steelers? Well, if you're up 29-0 and the Steelers almost come back in the game, Vikings, that's about it. I don't think the Titans are going to do that. I don't think the Titans are going to let the Steelers back in the way the Vikings did last week. So I think that even though Dante Foreman only got about 1/3 of the snaps last week, still he got the 15 touches. I still think he's the goal line back. You see him dangerous as a receiver. And I think that he's going to be the thorn in the Steelers' side this week as we see the Steelers giving up so many big running plays, getting gashed. I don't know how you can fix that over a week. And I know that every time they try to fix the Steelers' offense, it lasts for maybe a half.
Yeah, I'm getting a lot of Chase Claypool questions, Bloom, which makes me go, why? Like, okay, we know the talent is there with Chase Claypool. We know him and Mike Tomlin not getting along or whatever's going there. And obviously with the talent, he can always go off. But what the heck flex as Chase Claypool? Like, I'm starting Sutton over Claypool, stuff like that. But just an unusual amount in week 1 of the fantasy playoffs that I would get questions about that guy, Bloom. So let's talk about it.
Yeah. So again, it seems like the Steelers have gone through this for a couple of weeks now. Like, oh, let's have the regular offense. The regular offense doesn't work. Let's do the Ben Sandlot offense. Certainly, the Ben Sandlot offense can work against Tennessee. So Dante Johnson's in, Pat Freiermuth is in, and probably Chase Claypool. And I suppose the riddle about Claypool this week is as he's making more lapses, as he's hurting his team more with his decisions, he's involved more in the offense. And if Ben's playing Sandlot ball, then it only takes one for Claypool against Tennessee, who we don't exactly think of as a secondary that's going to shut down opposing passing games. We do have a pass rush with Harold Landry, who's broken out, so that could be something that could be a trouble for the Steelers. But you laid it out at the beginning of this one, the Steelers just trying to survive, and we did see at least last week from the Steelers in a similar just trying to survive when their outgun situation actually shows some pride and something to toast, something to cheer. We'll see if they can do that in this game that really is a must-win kind of win or go home game for them. For Tennessee, they're thinking win, and maybe we can be the number 1 seed.
Bloom, I'm too curious, and of course we got Houston, Jacksonville next. So, but since I'm on audio file,
yeah,
is that a car wash behind you? Like, what's going on? Are you power washing your floors in your house?
Well, the nature of our new setup here. Again, this is like an announcement, really, not an official announcement. But when we purchased a home in New Orleans earlier this year, we purchased a double because we're going to have a vacation spot on the other side. So, folks out there that you want to come down to New Orleans in the year 2022, when it's safe to come down, and included in the vacation rental is a beer or coffee or whatever you want with me. So we're a little more compact here on our side. Right now, the baking operation is also going on. So it's a factory, Cease. It's a factory of fantasy football takes and a factory of delicious baked goods.
All right. Delicious baked goods are better than Houston and Jacksonville. every day because, oh my God, Houston, at least Brandon Cooks didn't completely bomb on you like he has been, but
every day.
I am not compelled to start any of the Texans. No Rex Burkhead. I actually did get a David Johnson question last night, which was, again, kind of weird. But it's the Texans, Bloom, and they're against Jacksonville. I don't want to dig for fantasy gold in this game, really, on either side of the ball.
Maybe, probably. I don't know, actually. The game is a riddle. It's a riddle every year. Houston, Jacksonville, AFC South, throw out the records and all those things. We'll really throw out the records, throw out these teams, right? We'll get to a coach that got thrown out. But Houston actually has been dominating this series, surprisingly. 7 out of the last 7, 13 out of the last 15. Of course, they won 37-21 in the season opener. And Davis Mills is slinging it. Now, the defensive side of the ball in Jacksonville was the side that Urban Meyer was not involved in. So it'll probably still be, I don't know, mediocre at best. So it makes you like Cooks, but maybe you even look at Brevin Jordan or Nico Collins, the rookies who are coming on. They're playing like rookies now. And then David Johnson should be back this week. So if it's a David Johnson, Royce Freeman split backfield, that doesn't sound great. Jacksonville not totally a pushover against the run. But see, ding dong, the witch is dead.
Ah!
There's peace on the horizon. Maybe you just hired maybe if you make the worst head coach hire in the history of the NFL, that's what can get your team interested again. That's what can get your fans interested again. Plot twist.
Maybe you're the next guy and you're like, that's all I got to follow?
Yeah.
Great. I will say this, and Bloom, I could be totally wrong, and not to disagree with you, but if you're counting on Houston Texans not named Brandon Cooks in your fantasy playoffs, you deserve to lose.
Yeah.
Sorry. That's it. Jacksonville is interesting because Ding Dong the Witch is dead. Bye-bye. And Shad Khan, a good man. Tony Khan, a good man. Make that decision, move on, and then somebody fix Trevor Lawrence. So this is more of a next year take, Bloom, than this week and fantasy playoffs and Jaguars. But there should be some spirit lifted now that Meyer is gone.
There should be cease. I'm disappointed to an extent because you know how there's just end the season Jets. All right.
Yeah.
I came up with one for this week. Just axe the parentheses. Coach Khan should have sick. I don't really mean I know should have never vetted the immature, lousy, lying, evil. It spells out Jacksonville. Trust me. Write it down. So he did it though. He just did it overnight. So that's what we wake up to. And maybe James Robinson. Maybe this makes you go back to James Robinson. Maybe even Trevor Lawrence in 2 quarterback superflex leagues. The question is there that dead Urban Meyer bounce, the dead cat bounce to this offense? Because that's the side of the ball that he was involved on. Is there that weight lifted? Do they just go out and play football? Get back to loving football, because it would have been hard to love playing football.
They do have some talent, dude, and I don't think
Yeah.
Trevor Lawrence is a slappy. Like,
No.
just get Urban Meyer away from him. It's not going to happen this year, but you know there could be some hope on the horizon.
Yeah, and we'll see this week. It's the Texans, you know. So who knows? Maybe this could be a shootout.
And don't say dead cat bounce, or else Devin Bush is going to try to post a video about it. Don't be a weirdo, dude. Don't be a weirdo. Anyway, Cincinnati and Denver is the next game that we're going to preview. And on the Bengals side, is there a more inconsistent team? They're 0-5 in one-score games, or they blow you out. And it really doesn't matter who the opponent is. It doesn't matter the caliber of the opponent. They either lose in a one-score game, or they completely kick your ass. Now, against Denver, we did see the ground game work a little bit for Detroit. It should work a lot of bit for Joe Mixon. Samaje Perine, always worth the what the heck flex, in my opinion, Bloom. And then to the receivers, like, okay, the last time that we saw Pat Surtain against Jamar Chase was 2019. Chase had 140 yards and a touchdown. And it wasn't all on Surtain, but still, like, we've seen this before, and it wasn't good for Pat Surtain. So let's talk about Chase, T. Higgins, all of these assets. Uzomah not as attractive because Kenny Young and Baron Browning have, you know, they're better coverage players. But Cincinnati, Bloom, the weird thing to figure out about them is what are they going to be? Which version of Cincinnati are we going to get?
Yeah, I think we will get a good passing game. Joe Burrow's playing well. this is a quasi playoff game. Again, if you don't win this game, then you shouldn't expect to go to the playoffs. Maybe you can somehow back into the playoffs. These teams have never met in the playoffs. I was surprised when I was looking at the history. So Burrow to Higgins, Burrow to Chase, getting that touchdown. They finally started going after the 49ers corners. Maybe if they had done that earlier in the game, throwing downfield, and also not had all those mistakes. That's the other thing. We look at their performance last week from an offensive standpoint. They shot themselves in the foot so many times as a team that there was a lot more there against the 49ers. Enough to go to Boyd, enough to go to Uzuma. It's going to be a beautiful weekend, right? It's not wintry in Denver at all right now, is it?
No, we had our snow last week. And that's this dirty little secret about Colorado. I actually don't like saying this, Bloom.
Sunny
300 days a year.
Yeah.
But also it snows and it goes away.
Yeah.
Like we'll have it'll dump on us and then 2 days later it'll be 70. So that's the Colorado secret.
So you're not worried about the weather here. The other side is a Joe Mixon bounce back. Samaje Perine, remember, he's getting the passing down work. He's running a lot more routes than Joe Mixon. Maybe that levels out. You're still going to play Joe Mixon, but there was a point 2-3 weeks ago that we thought Joe Mixon was going to be a league winner. Maybe not so much. Like you said, Cease, there's some good played inside linebacker now. Denver's defense resurgent, and Denver's offense, as long as the game script allows it, has an identity.
It does have an identity. It's called run the ball, and that means Melvin Gordon, RB2, Javonte Williams, RB2, both of them plenty of health there. Wide receiver and tight end wise, not as much. Now, Cincinnati has given up I think they're number 21st ranked in terms of giving up points to fantasy tight ends. So they'll give it up. It's just Noah Fant doesn't do anything after the catch. He's a catch and fall down guy. They are 4th worst in pass defense overall. So to the wide receivers, you could say this could be Sutton. This could be Patrick. It's mostly Jerry Jeudy, but is Jeudy as a flex, right? It's Sutton as a flex. It's Patrick as a what the heck flex. It's not necessarily exciting, although this could be the week. People mistake it and say last week was the week that they could get the passing game. No, last week against Detroit, they just should have kept running the ball. This week is a week where if they want to, they can, but Teddy's not healthy. I don't know. It's one of those at the end of the season, Bloom, we're going to get like, oh, by the way, Teddy has a shin splint that he needs surgery to repair. It's going to be one of those things. So Teddy's not healthy. Passing game isn't great. He gets off receivers quickly. Sutton and Patrick are never open, but they're always open, but they're always covered. It's problematic if you're counting on Broncos receivers in your fantasy playoffs.
Yeah, we're going to find out. Cease, he was playing on a prosthetic leg. We didn't even know. Wow, we should really congratulate him. No, I'm just saying you're right, Cease. And this pass offense, really the only reason you're going to dip into this pass offense when you set your lineup is if you think Joe Burrow and Cincinnati can actually jump out to a lead on the road and force the Denver offense out of its shell. And Pat Shermer can say, see, we need to pass. But you're right. The ceiling isn't very high because you're splitting it 5 ways, 6, 7 ways if you count the running backs. And Teddy Bridgewater's not going to be a daring downfield passer. That takes a lot of the upside off of Cortland Sutton. It's really Javonte Williams. And I think the key, not that people don't know this already, is you just find a way to put Javonte Williams in your lineup. There are very few running backs you're going to start over Javonte Williams. See, Melvin Gordon hand issue, any worries there?
Yeah, I mean, he's got hand, hip, ankle things. So, yeah, it's a lot of stuff
Head,
going
shoulders,
on.
knees, and toes.
Exactly. Hip bone connected to the thigh bone, connected to the on my bench bone. Like, nah.
Yeah, so I think, and that's really more of a question about Melvin Gordon as a what the heck flex, who's had a resurgent season. But Javonte Williams, that's the bottom line here. Denver, Cease, would you have thought if I would have said to you on December 19th, the Broncos would play a relevant playoff picture game? You probably would have disagreed. So
I probably would have said you've been to a dispensary here in Colorado. I'm not familiar with the weed laws in New Orleans, but
decriminalized this year actually. So only the state can legalize, but in the city it is decriminalized, even to the point where they pardon folks who were in jail previously, which is something that needs to happen in the entire country.
Hey, shocker! Right. Podcast number 9,642.
Right. United States drug policy history forward. Well, I'll say this. No, unless the whole world has been to a dispensary and we're all just hallucinating Denver actually having a chance to go to the playoffs. They actually have a chance to go to the playoffs.
I went to one of those ayahuasca resorts.
Yeah.
There you go. What
Down
a
on the
long,
Amazon.
strange trip it's been. Atlanta and San Francisco. That feels like some ayahuasca, right? Or peyote or whatever. Joe's like, could you please stop talking about drugs? It's fine. We're all adults, but you're adults. You're adulting if you're looking at your Falcons and saying Cordell Patterson, yes. Kyle Pitts, maybe. And I'm getting quite a few Russell Gage questions, and I generally err on the side of playing him. But Bloom, what do you think of the Falcons this week against the 49ers?
First, I want to say again, history sees this was a divisional matchup for a long time. Remember when these teams? I think it was the NFC West. Atlanta used to be in the NFC West. Also, these teams have played in the playoffs a few times. There was actually before there was 28-3, which is right up there behind me, that Zulu coconut. There was 17-0, 24-14. Atlanta was up on San Francisco in the NFC title game. They were up 17-0 in the first half, 24-14 at the half, and San Francisco comes back to win 28-24. Of course, San Francisco goes to the Super Bowl here in New Orleans, the Super Bowl with the power outage. See, if I said there was a Super Bowl with a power outage, where did it happen? It should only take one guess. It should only take one guess to know. Do we like Cordell Patterson? I mean, sentimentally, I want to play Cordell Patterson this week. But if San Francisco jumps out to lead and Patterson not being used as much in the passing game, he needs a touchdown. He's a touchdown-dependent play at this point, unless we see his usage change from the previous pattern the last 3 or 4 weeks. Russell Gage, yes, he was coming out hot last week, and then Atlanta blew out Carolina. They're not going to blow out San Francisco. Probably going to go with Kyle Pitts for the same reason. All of these things point to a game script where Atlanta's going to have to pass a lot. And San Francisco, of course, can shorten the game with their running game. That's where Matt Ryan, it's a little more of a dicey play in your 2-quarterback superflex leagues just because, what does he really have? It's a lot of dink and dunk, and we'll see what San Francisco's defensive game plan is. But again, they're very vulnerable in the secondary. But there's no Calvin Ridley, Tajay Sharp or Olamide Zacchaeus. Yeah, so we Pitts, Gage, maybe Patterson, and Atlanta is still in the playoff picture somehow. But I think that does match more with the dispensary storyline.
Yes, because they're in the NFC. The San Francisco side, I'm glad you said they could shorten the game with their ground game, Bloom. Because who the hell is it going to be?
Yeah.
Doesn't seem like it's going to be Eli Mitchell. Seems more like it's going to be Jeff Wilson.
Right.
And, of course, the 49ers always throwing us for a loop somehow, some way. George Kittle limited. Don't worry about it. Kittle's going to Kittle, which everybody's going to start him, of course. And then you're actually considering Jimmy Garoppolo based on what Debo can do, what Brandon Ayuk can do alongside George Kittle. It could be very interesting, but the interesting fact, it seems like most weeks, is who's starting for the running back position in San Francisco.
And Debo Samuel is complicating this. But at this moment, so see, when we're recording on Thursday, whether it's the COOF list or non-practice participation or coaches saying, maybe they're going to play, we don't know, then let's just project it as if they're not going to play. So I think you do project Jeff Wilson as a starter, but he's more of a what-the-heck flex. It's a good matchup, so maybe that gives you a nudge to make him the choice out of the what-the-heck flexes. But then there's Debo Samuel, who really is their best running back at this point. But Samuel, like Cordell Patterson, that wide receiver running back / a lot more running back than wide receiver, which makes Brandon Ayuk a very good play in this one. And, of course, George Kittle. See, we just need to take a moment out to say he's playing at a Hall of Fame level right now. George Kittle, and he's a wonderful player. And one of the great things about George Kittle is he leaves it all out there in every aspect of the game. And there was the catch he made that should have set up a game-winning field goal, but Robbie Gould missed it last week. That was one of the best catches of the season. And when you magnify it, amplify it by this game situation, it was maybe the best catch of the season. And it was all for naught. And he just came back and made plays in overtime. So from a fantasy level, also, with Travis Kelce not doing very much, with Darren Waller hurt, with TJ Hawkinson hurt, Mark Andrews, we'll see what he does with his new quarterback, Snoop, George Kittle may be a league winner. And it just goes to show how, for a good stretch of the season, we didn't have George Kittle, or George Kittle was not producing for us. But now you may look back and say, I won the fantasy championship because I had George Kittle. Maybe not Jimmy Garoppolo, but Garoppolo's been putting up some decent numbers. And more importantly, he's complicating the decision for San Francisco about their quarterback next year. But for this week, San Francisco's offense on the whole has a good outlook.
I don't want to turn this into a 49ers show, but I don't think that's the case, Bloom.
Well, from the outside looking in, right.
From what I can tell you, on the air.
Huh.
The team, there was the idea, Lassie Bark, that Jimmy's not going to make it through. Because Jimmy's hurt, even when he's not hurt, he's hurt, And there was that thought, again, Lassie Bark, from the team thinking Jimmy's not going to make it through. So are they just wringing the towel with Jimmy Garoppolo, trying to get everything out before they make that switch? Yeah.
The off-season trade market should be interesting because I think we can be certain that the NFL sees Garoppolo in a much better light than we do, whether it's because of our fantasy takes, because San Francisco's run-heavy offense at times, whether it's because Garoppolo's failures seem to loom larger than his stretches of success during his career. But I think you're right.
And it's that trade value that's going to make the decision easy because it was the decision they were going to make anyway.
Right.
Now it's easy because now imagine all the teams that thought maybe they could have their quarterback thing figured out. Let's say Carolina, for example, for whatever reason, Sam Darnold. Well, that ain't going to work out. So now that's another team. Pittsburgh.
Right.
That's another team. Seattle. They get rid of Russell Wilson. That's another team. Green Bay. You really think Jordan Love's the answer? That's not. That's another team. So now their asset is growing, improving with Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah. So every time it sees, I try not to do this because we have 4 more weeks regular season and the postseason and all kinds of good stuff. But the quarterback scenarios are mind-boggling in a wonderful way. They're all interrelated. Who will be the first to act? Which domino will happen? Change the destiny of players, change the destiny of franchises. I'm just glad that hopefully Pittsburgh can actually improve their quarterback situation somehow in the offseason.
Yeah, somehow, some way. Seattle and the LA Rams is up next, and Seattle side is, I guess, Rashad Penny. And if you did get Rashad Penny on your waiver wire, Bloom, I wouldn't break your arm patting yourself on the back because you might break his arm because he is like Humpty Dumpty, right? Just so fragile. So fragile, if we're going to do a Christmas story time, right? It's fragile. That leg, that's Rashad Penny's leg. And hopefully your wife doesn't get mad and smash it in the lamp or whatever happened.
It was an accident. Cecil, it was an accident. It was totally an accident.
Totally an accident. Actually, I know a guy who doesn't like that movie. And I was like, why are you Satan? Like, seriously, like, you're not like Christmas Story. Anyway, fragile, Rashad Penny. But if you smoke him, if you got him, Bloom.
Yeah.
And if you got him, put him in because, again, it's windows for me. And I think you're chasing ghosts with Rashad Penny. But if you picked him up, and that means you need him, unless you're jock blocking somebody for whatever reason, jock blocking with an injury-prone player, but smoke him if you got him because his window's going to be very short. He might play a quarter. He might play a half. Maybe he plays the full game, and good for you.
Right. It's one of those windows where like the window falls when you're halfway through and you're stuck in it. That's Rashad Penny. So, by the way, the Rams have won 7 out of the last 9 in this matchup, including the playoff game last year. Metcalf in the earlier game this year, this was the game when Metcalf had 5 for 98 and 2 touchdowns, but Geno Smith entered about halfway through this game in the first matchup, which the Rams won in Seattle. Russell Wilson on the road here, coming on, but enough to say, see, if you had to decide between Russell Wilson and Taysom Hill or Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, some of these upside plays, probably
or Jalen Hurts. Russell Wilson's on the bench.
Tyler Lockett is not. Tyler Lockett and Russell Wilson do have a good thing going again for the last 3-4 weeks. DK Metcalf not so much, and he's on the injury report kind of like Melvin Gordon. So he's head, shoulders, knees, and toes with, and then that back I think is in there with DK Metcalf. And Penny, like you said, I guess you just cross yourself, say a wish, and put Penny in your lineup. Although the Rams did bottle up James Conner last week as a runner. Penny not exactly accomplished as a receiver, so none of us should be surprised if Penny has an 8 for 18 kind of game here, and not because he gets hurt. Seattle in a very unfamiliar position, playing for pride. When's the last time we've been doing December previews and saying, well, Seattle's just playing for pride? We'll see. Different things take over in these divisional matchups. The familiarity breeds contempt, right? But the Rams right now are coming in sky high off of that big win on Monday night against the Cardinals. After a lull, September, maybe in October, we're saying Rams potential Super Bowl team. Nobody was saying that as Matthew Stafford was playing poorly. Now you watch that game Monday night against the Cardinals, a team that we certainly would put among the Super Bowl contenders in any treatment of the subject. We have to think about that with the Rams, and they're coming in hot.
Why don't more people talk about Cooper Kupp as like the best receiver in the league?
Because he doesn't make highlight plays.
Okay.
That's just my knee-jerk reaction.
Okay. Sure. There's some of that there. I'd say also it's probably because he's white. We're not going to shy away from those kind of conversations on this show. But yeah, I mean, the Cooper Kupp is amazing. He's dazzling. He's fascinating. He's going to have 2,000 yards receiving. Why aren't more people like falling all over themselves to talk about him? Because that kid is good. He's really good and really fun to watch. Like, and that's the thing. Like, whether it's Jonathan Taylor or Cooper Kupp or Javonte Williams, there are just certain players in the league where I just want to watch this guy. I don't know what he's going to do, but I'm going to have fun watching it. And that's what I get with Cooper Kupp. And, of course, that's what fantasy GMs get all the time with Cooper Kupp. Getting some Van Jefferson questions as well. People wondering if they can continue on this hot streak, Bloom. But I just wanted to take a moment out on our show and discuss, well, why isn't Cooper Kupp talked about even more than he is already?
Yeah, it could be West Coast bias too, East Coast bias. But, the point is that you're not seeing a lot of coverage of the West Coast teams. Justin Herbert still in some obscurity in the sense that, like, imagine if Justin Herbert was doing what he was doing for the Giants or the Jets. I mean, it would be everything. It would be all you would ever hear about, basically. So, there's some of that. But yeah, Cooper Kupp, we needed to recognize him. He's on pace to set the all-time record for fantasy points in a season by a wide receiver. Wow. So there's that connection with Matthew Stafford. And by the way, this is the Seattle defense that allowed Davis Mills to start 14 for 14 last week. So yeah, we may have Cooper Kupp 14 catches in the first half in this one. And then Odell Beckham on the Koof list. So that makes it really easy to make any Van Jefferson decisions. I don't expect we're going to see him. Darrell Henderson, as of today, and there's 3 players still on the Koof list today that were put on last week that are going to affect our lineup decisions. Really 4 if you count Philip Lindsay and Salvin Ahmed 5. But Myles Gaskin, Darrell Henderson in this one, and Jamal Williams. So maybe by the time you're listening to this, those players have been activated, but it's Thursday. So I think we're probably going to see another Sony Michel game. And I think Sony Michel matches what they want to do in the running game anyway. And we'll see Tyler Higbee, another player, probably not going to make it back off the Koof list. Another player that makes it easier if he's not in the offense to start Sony Michel, to start Van Jefferson, to start this Rams team, making a full circle back around to the playoff picture, the Super Bowl picture, and maybe for good putting Seattle out of it.
And the chat room is talking about having a drink before noon because of all these Koof lists and Waddle now, Bloom, right? Like,
is that a new one?
Hey, yeah. So there you go. Sorry, everybody. This is 2021 fantasy football.
We need a counter. It's like how many minutes has been since a player's been added to the Koof list. Oh, reset it back to 0.
Right. Yeah, it's a year to be sure. Let's talk about Green Bay and Baltimore up next. Maybe that'll put me in a better mood, Bloom, or maybe not, because it's Aaron Rodgers, who's not in a good mood himself because he's got a broken pinky toe that he can't do anything about, not during the regular season. I mean, he could if he wanted to not play again. I do appreciate how Pat McAfee asked the tough question, like, you really enjoying playing in Green Bay? And he said, I enjoy playing ball. Like, it's done. I know Packers and not actually, I got to reach out to Nagler and see what he says. Our guy, Aaron Nagler, Cheesehead TV. But when Packers media all the time, Bloom, it's so funny. Like, he's not going anywhere. It's like the Russell Wilson thing, right? Because my Seattle media guys tell me he's not going anywhere. Yeah, those Seattle media guys don't talk to the scouts. They don't talk to the GM. They don't talk to John Schneider. Like, Russell's gone, Rodgers is gone. Just, it's gonna happen. Okay, get your fan bases used to that. With Green Bay now traveling to Baltimore, and we got Aaron Jones a little bit banged up, Bloom. So we're looking at Rodgers and this backfield and the Packers and saying, please help us. Can we have some normalcy this week in fantasy football?
Yeah. I don't think we're going to see Lamar Jackson for this one. Snoop Huntley, Tyler Huntley against Aaron Rodgers. We were going to get our first Aaron Rodgers versus Lamar Jackson matchup. So we're denied that at this point. Aaron Rodgers is playing I guess, break his pinky toe before the season because he's playing his best football of the season. He's back to his 2020 MVP form, and that's great because Baltimore's secondary is really bad. They've had at some point. See, it was a great heartwarming story of this team started out with 15, 16 players on IR at the beginning of the season, and at one point they were the number one seed in the AFC. A lot of those injuries in the secondary. Marlon Humphrey, maybe the injury that broke the Ravens' back in the defense. And yeah, Aaron Rodgers is going to take advantage of that. And Alan Lazard, I think he's going to be what the heck flex, but he's an easy play this week against that secondary. Maybe even Marcus Valdez-Scantling. Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon in a committee. Actually, Dillon had more snaps than Jones last week. Jones scored both of the backfield touchdowns, but Dillon did get a lot of looks in the red zone. So don't go away. I still think Dillon's probably a better play than Jones. They're both good running back twos. That being said, you could see 4 or 5 touchdowns all scored through the air here because of that Ravens secondary. The Ravens trying to hang on, and, well, Snoop Huntley showing maybe he's the guy that knows how to do that.
Yeah, and knows how to do that with Mark Andrews, right? With Mandrews, and that's a good thing. That'll come through for you. Knows how to do it with Rashad Bateman. So is it as simple as rinse and repeat? We know that once a little bit of film gets out on guys, then teams and defenses can change what they do, and they can make someone look a little bit different. But it's home cooking for Huntley, and home cooking could be pretty good cooking for Baltimore fans this week.
Yeah, for fantasy at least, it's good cooking for Mark Andrews, and you saw the chemistry with Rashad Bateman, and I think Bateman's a better play than Marquise Brown this week. I think Hollywood, you saw the deep ball with Huntley, maybe more area code accuracy than zip code accuracy. And that's where Marquise Brown could shine. And also, I think you're just going to see Green Bay's defense really pressure him, and I think that Huntley.
And then he's going to run, and he's going to hurt you with his legs.
Yeah, he's going to be a good play for fantasy, although it may not necessarily equal a good day for the Ravens. I think you got to play Devontae Freeman just because you're going to get those receptions in a PPR league. It's going to give you a floor, maybe a touchdown here. But again, this is a Ravens team that sees it's like the mountain climber in Price is Right that we love to talk about, the yodeling. I don't want to try to imitate it right now. But the point is, you don't know when it's going to stop, right? And the Ravens started out at a great spot with their record through the season. But with each successive loss, they're going to get closer to the cliff. And there are no easy games left on their schedule. So this could be one that gets them closer to that cliff. But again, Tyler Huntley, Snoop, has won a cliffhanger and almost won a second one last week.
Almost. Why don't we get good primetime games in week 15? We got to deal with all this Koofless stuff, and we can't even do a God-blessed preview without, oh, by the way, the people we told you to start, now they're on the Koof list, so sorry, you can't start them. Don't listen to anything that we just said in yesterday's show. Anyway, Bloom, I'm grumpy. Let's talk about the awful primetime games. We got 2 of them left. New Orleans and Tampa Bay is the next game up, so what in the world are we going to see from this one? Because it's New Orleans, and okay, Alvin Kamara, 29 carries again. Hey, see how that works out, all right? And now Kamara can produce. Hopefully he stays healthy, though, Bloom. He just came back. Seriously, come on, New Orleans. And get your real quarterback somehow, some way, someday, not this year. But, of course, Taysom Hill can be like Tim Tebow and be awful as a passer and still be a quarterback one for fantasy. That's why fantasy football... Well, it's kind of stupid sometimes.
It is. It really is.
That's the way it is with Taysom Hill.
Grumpy, was Grumpy a dwarf? I'm going to really show my brain Swiss cheese.
Yes, I believe so, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And was Grumpy also a Care Bear? Like one of the only Care Bears that wasn't all unicorns and rainbows?
No, I'm not sure.
I'm not sure about that. You're more Care Bear.
Ask me about Tiny Toons or Looney Tunes or whatever.
Right, a little before your time. A divisional matchup, this could be interesting. The Saints are still alive. Again, it's the NFC, so the Saints are still alive. Remember, this Saints team is 3-1 against Tom Brady. And the one was a loss with a lot of unforced errors on offense. So we'll see. Maybe this one could be more interesting than you think. Taysom Hill, yes, you're going to play. I mean, if he's been getting these fluky touchdowns in games that weren't close at the end, this one you would not expect to be close at the end. If it is close at the end, maybe it's a heroic defensive performance, but probably some more fluky touchdowns. Yes, Taysom Hill's got to be in here. Alvin Kamara, of course. We still haven't seen Mark Ingram emerge from the Koof list. Not that that's going to affect whether you're going to play Kamara, but it certainly enhances his ceiling. Maybe Adam Troutman. If there's nothing you want in this passing game, if you have to throw a Hail Mary, if Adam Troutman's going to play, because you would expect Taysom Hill to have to pass a lot with that splint on his finger, on his throwing hand. Keep it short, maybe to Adam Troutman, and we'll see. But you're right, Cease. This could end up being one that we turn off pretty early.
Yeah. Tampa Bay side. We turn it off pretty early because Tampa Bay gets up big and runs away with it at home, and just they kind of pretend Drew Brees is still playing so they could take it out on him, because the Saints have been a thorn in the side of the Tom Brady Buccaneers. No more, Bloom. So if Tampa does do that and they run away with it, well, it's all the normal guys, right? It's all anybody you would ever start anyway at home in Tampa.
Yeah, it's really simple. I mean, there's not a lot to the fantasy outlook here, except maybe to watch Fournette's ankle situation. Leonard Fournette, man, he's having a great season. But Evans, even against Marshawn Lattimore, Chris Godwin, maybe higher ceiling. Rob Gronkowski, you love what he's been doing. You love what Tom Brady's been doing. You love what this team has been doing. And see, we talk about it almost every week. But in the season, with so much tumult, with so much upheaval, with so many moving targets, with teams reinventing themselves and having to make drastic changes, Tampa's just steady. It's Bruce Arians, right? Like, isn't Bruce Arians calming? So what you need, Cease, is a little picture of Bruce Arians we can put up, like with his raspberry beret on,
Right?
Just calming, because he's like, we got it. Like, Bruce Arians is one of the coaches, like, you don't have to eat, drink, excrete football. Have a life too, right? That's Bruce Arians. Maybe that's why this team is so cool, calm, and collected in this most uproarious season.
See, there's Bruce Arians staring right at you in the middle.
Oh, yeah, there he is. David Dodds as Bruce Arians. Yeah.
As Bruce Arians. There we go, everybody. And
every day.
Close. Gets me in a better mood a little bit, maybe. By the way, Matthew and Ion's Cat, everybody's saying Grumpy Bear is a Care Bear who made his first appearance as an illustration in American Greetings card in 1982. He's since become one of the most prominent and recognizable characters in the franchise. So there you go.
You are Grumpy Bear. That's
I am. I'm Grumpy Bear.
You need to get a Grumpy Bear shirt, or you don't have any tattoos, right? No. So like we got to someone get Cecil a Grumpy Bear shirt, or maybe the ski cap with the little Grumpy Bear, in there. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Actually, no tattoos, Bloom. I'm not against ink. I'm just against bad ink. You know how many people have bad ink? Like, seriously.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I want to get that covered up. Anyway, you know what Pritch told me? I get investment advice from Pritchard, which is good because he's a millionaire and I'm not. He said, you know what I'm investing in, Cecil? I said, what? He said, tattoo removal businesses.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, good idea. Good idea, Pritch. Always
Divorce lawyers.
Always ahead of the game. My man, Mike Pritchard. Let's get this thing wrapped up because, oh my God, Minnesota and Chicago. I know it's our cover athletes, right? Like, we had to pick somebody. Look at Kirk. He's like, can I come to your house and tell you about my Lord and Savior? Like, no, Kirk. No, I'm not answering the door. Go away. But it's Kirk Cousins. It is Justin Fields. It is Minnesota and Chicago. And Dalvin Cook fantasy GMs are like, just wait. Speaking of just wait, I guess we have to just wait on Adam Thielen. What's the latest there, Bloom? That means KJ Osborne could move into what the heck flex levels. Obviously, you're starting Justin Jefferson. But Minnesota, Chicago, another primetime dud.
Yeah. The Bears primetime, really? The Bears have actually won 5 of 6 in this matchup. Strange. I don't know what to take out of that. So it was let Kirk drive the tractor. No. This is easy. Let Dalvin cook, right? And why would you go away from him at this point? Vikings trying to sneak into the playoffs, and then they're a dangerous team with one Dalvin Cook and Cousins to Justin Jefferson. That's all you need. You don't even need Thielen. No need to rush back Thielen with the high ankle sprain. I don't think we're going to see him. But Conklin, Osborne, these guys aren't really needed. Osborne had that long touchdown as the Steelers were creeping back into that game, or otherwise he would have been a dud last week. I don't see any reason to go away from these two titans, not Tennessee Titans, but of fantasy football, of NFL quality. And really what makes this game interesting to watch, other than the fantasy football layers, is Justin Fields and how Justin Fields is doing. And so we can start thinking about, well, who do we want to end up in Chicago? Who do we want to be the next offensive coordinator for him? How do we want to see him develop? Because now, before the injury we saw it, now we're seeing it after the injury. Some glimmers of why he was a player that when the Bears moved up for him, there was rejoicing. Chicago might have a real quarterback. We'll get to see if he looks a little more like a real quarterback in this one.
Yeah, real quarterback that you're starting over real Russell Wilson types. You get to the line of Taysom Hill, Jalen Hurts. This is where the conversation comes in with Justin Fields and then the assets around him. I've gotten some Darnell Mooney questions. Dave Montgomery, you're starting, top 10 fantasy running back. Go do it as you always do. And do you know who Khalil Herbert reminds me of, Bloom? I didn't get to say this in the recap show, but you remember how they were just having return after return after return? The Bears, whether it was Jakeem Grant or Khalil Herbert. Khalil Herbert reminds me of when Amon Green used to return kicks for Seattle. And you're just like, that kid can play. He's a kick returner because he's behind Ricky Waters, but that kid can play. And Amon Green got his chance. And well, he has I think a Twitch channel, Bloom, talks about video games. So yeah, Amon Green, good dude. You're not starting Khalil Herbert, but I just wanted to talk about Khalil Herbert because I love him, Bloom. And I don't love this matchup, so please, let's end this.
Yeah, and Damian Williams has been getting more touches and snaps. It's not even a clear backup, but you are going to play David Montgomery in any event. You can get some receptions. You are going to play Justin Fields. It's fun to play Justin Fields at this point, especially because Minnesota, the offense should put up some points and force Fields. They won't be able to go into a shell here. If you are going to play anyone from this passing game, maybe it's Darnell Mooney. When Damiere Byrd took off for that touchdown last week, I thought it was Darnell Mooney. It made sense, right? Someone that could just pull it. Damiere Byrd's got some speed, right? He's bounced around the league, Carolina and New England, some places, but he still has that speed. What you loved about that play, though, was Justin Fields and the timing to hyper-accurate throw to set up the run after catch opportunity. That could be Darnell Mooney's music to put you over the top in this new Week 15 first week of the fantasy playoffs in a lot of leagues. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, it should be. Anyway, you're playing in Week 18. I don't know why. Everything's changed. Everything's different now, Bloom. But what's the same is what the heck flex, because you're looking over your lineup. It is week 1 of the fantasy playoffs, and I did not get to say this yet. But you know what that means, Bloom. It's the return of the Marcy Rossman rule. You dance with who brung you. And that's why, when we're talking about could Houston be your guys to bet? No, dance with who brung you, man. You got here because of guys like Aaron Rodgers. You got here because of guys like David Montgomery. Dance with who brung you. So I am that. Maybe it's old school. Maybe it's wrong. But I just like remembering Marcy Rossman, Bloom, and knowing that sometimes when you go to that dance, you better dance with who you went with so you don't ruin everything, because you don't want to ruin your fantasy chances to move on to the second round of the playoffs. Now, what the heck flex? We did talk about this yesterday. Nyheim Hines, what the heck flex? Tony Pollard, what the heck flex? Michael Carter is what the heck flex level. Darius Johnson is what the heck flex level. Samaje Perine to me is a nice what the heck flex. To the wide receiver position we go. Rondale Moore is interesting because we're just trying to see who in Arizona is going to come out as maybe a weapon or a top target without DeAndre Hopkins. I'll put my chip on Rondale Moore. That explosiveness from the rookie is always exciting and interesting. I sure would love Rashad Bateman to continue his thing with Baltimore. So he is in as a what the heck flex this week. I think Tim Patrick, always that what the heck flex. I think Cortland Sutton is a little bit higher than a what the heck flex this week. But Bloom, it's officially official. It's week 1 of the fantasy playoffs, and you need some punch. Who are your week 15 what the heck flexes?
Okay, Cecil. You got the Marcy Rossman rule. Okay. But what if your car broke down on the way to the dance and you had to hitchhike to the dance? Do you dance with who you hitchhiked with? And that's kind of the 2021 fantasy football season, right? No one brung you. You had to walk part of the way. You took a bus for part of the way. You hitchhiked.
We actually went to that dance in my sister's Mustang, and she had gotten sideswiped on a country road where she was going over a hill and the car was coming up and they didn't see each other. So it was right down the side. She was okay, but the whole side of her car was flat. And then we had plastic over the driver window. And so when I picked up Marcy, it was in my sister's car.
You gotta get in the driver's side and get around the back.
Yes, yeah. I gotta climb over the console, and there you go. So I was thinking, how impressive is this? Hey, welcome to dating a guy with no money who's driving his sister's car, who's not even roadworthy, but it's the country and nobody cares.
Right. See, here's the podcast. Why has no one talked about the Marcy Rossman rule from Marcy Rossman's perspective? Yeah. Anyway, the running backs, Devin Singletary against Carolina. Yeah, because you expect them to control the game. You mentioned Michael Carter, Malcolm Brown, another one. We've got Koof list math here. We've got players coming back off of injured reserve to watch. So if Malcolm Brown is activated and Myles Gaskin is not activated, that looks good against the Jets. Dante Foreman, just in case. James Robinson, again, with the Urban Meyer ding dong, the which is dead bounce. Justin Jackson tonight. Austin Eckler, the early report is he's not going to get a full workload. I also think you could see aggravation of that injury. Justin Jackson could hit for you. Jordan Howard. I'm going to be telling a lot of people to play Jordan Howard as long as he's active. Craig Reynolds, Netflix and chill. Jamal Williams, as of this moment, has not been activated from the Coop list. If he's not activated, or if he's activated right before the game, like Saturday, gotta like Netflix. Wide receivers, Devontae Parker might be coming around just in time against the Jets. Nico Collins, again, against the Jacksonville defense. Marvin Jones. Some of the rumors were that Marvin Jones had a confrontation, even an altercation with Urban Meyer.
Oh, things have gotten physical. That's going to come out.
Get physical. Rashad Bateman, Amon-Ra St. Brown. That's almost in PPR, just a must start. It's just, I think it was Larkey tweets, Josh Larkey putting out there, if DeAndre Swift isn't out there, if TJ Hawkinson isn't out there, then yeah, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Alan Lazard talked about Russell Gage, talked about AJ Green and Christian Kirk with DeAndre Hopkins on the shelf, at least for the rest of the regular season. So this is why I say, Cease, we dance with who brung us, but this has been a different kind of year. Very rarely have you actually gotten to the dance with who you expected to be with you. So it's more like 2 a.m. closing time, kind of.
More like getting there and, well, it's not what you thought it was. You're not what you thought you were either. How about that? I should ask Marcy to come on the show sometime. Just be like, what? Because she always reaches out this time of year and like, hey, somebody heard my name on the radio again. Like, yeah, it's that time. Marcy Rossman.
But remember, the Marcy Rossman rule is really the Cecil Lammey rule. The Marcy Rossman
rule is don't be Cecil Lammey.
Exactly. I'm pointing. I'm using this pen to point because this is really important. We should really rename it the Cecil Lammey rule. And the Cecil Lammey rule is don't be like 17-year-old, 18-year-old Cecil Lammey. I guess
15-year-old.
15-year-old.
I know. I was 15 because I was a sophomore, and I left her there at the dance so I could go drink beer and egg the principal's house.
Right. Yes. So that's it. We're from here on, Cecil. I'm going to say we should call it the Cecil Lammey rule.
God, if my kids drank at 15, I'd be. Ugh.
Yeah. Really. That's there's a whole other nightmare, Cecil, where we all encounter like the 15, 16-year-old versions of ourselves and have to deal with ourselves. And woo.
Yeah, not good. Not good. What's good is you guys and the community supporting us, whether it's our Football Guys shop where you can get your Football Guys gear, your Sorry Joe t-shirt, your Football Guys mug. You want to drink a little coffee? I think I need more coffee, Bloom. Maybe less coffee. I know I need sleep for sure. So everyone out there, appreciate y'all for riding along with us, doing all those YouTube things, like, comment, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so that you never miss a vid. He's Sigmund Bloom. You follow him on Twitter at Sigmund Bloom. I'm at Cecil Lammey. The show is at the Audible, everyone. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned and stay frosty.